los terroristas.
I don't think so, bitches. Welcome to another edition of LODVLOG with me, Dave. This week we have two subjects to cover. One is video games, and two is why my vlogs are late this week. We'll start with number one, video games. I play a lot of video games. Like seriously, a fuck ton. It's probably what I've spent the majority of my existence doing. So because of this, I have a lot of opinions on the subject. I'll start with my favorite gaming genres. Now in fairness, I pretty much enjoy all genres of games. From driving games, action-adventure games, and puzzle games, to open world games, first-person shooters, and everything else in between. But by far my favorites are survival horror games and RPGs. When I was younger, I always enjoyed the sheer fucking terror I felt while playing Resident Evil or Silent Hill. Of course, back then, I would spend the majority of the time hiding behind something while my mom played the game. Ah, kill it, kill it, kill it. Now over time, I started playing the games myself, stopped being such a pussy, and enjoyed them a lot more. Somewhere in between that time, I found Final Fantasy, which kick-started my love for RPG games. Since then, anything with an RPG element has always caught my attention. The thought of traveling to a beautiful new land with warriors and mages and strange creatures, or a desolate wasteland filled with bloodthirsty gangs and warring factions and horrible abominations, these have been the ideas that have really interested me. Another thing worth talking about would be my favorite game franchises, companies, and consoles. Now when it comes to consoles, I've played on a lot of them. From the SNES and the Mega Drive to the PS3 and the Xbox 360. And though I enjoy playing on all of them, one system has always been my favorite throughout the years. The PlayStation. I have always loved PlayStation consoles. The PS1 was the first console to really get me into gaming. The PS2 then skyrocketed my interest in video games. And the PS3 kept me interested into my adult years. The controllers, the games, the free online network, the console itself, they're all reasons why PlayStation will always be my staple choice in gaming consoles. Now when it comes to franchises, there's a lot that I enjoy playing, but only a few that I love dearly. We shall start with Resident Evil. From the days of hiding behind stuff while my mother played the game until the time when I started trying to speedrun through the games, I've always loved the Resident Evil franchise. Resident Evil 3 was the first one I played and to this day is still my favorite. Mostly because the Nemesis was a badass that always had me turning tail and running like a sissy girl. Resident Evil 1 and 2 were next and I just couldn't stop playing them. The original Tyrant, Mr. X, William Birkin, they were all fucking terrifying. And I loved every moment I spent running the fuck away from them. Resident Evil 4 was a new kind of concept, and although I did love the game, the changes to the way your enemies were had me kind of lacking in interest. I missed the old, slow, stupid, classic Resident Evil zombies. 5 was the same. I loved it, but it was just far too different and far too short for me to really kind of get into it as much as I did with the original games. I haven't played 6 yet because I have that feeling I'm just going to feel the same way about that I did about 4 and 5. I am going to play it though, but it's not really that high on my to-do list. Now Resident Evil is great, but something that's just that little bit more badass? Metal Gear Solid.
wrong? Snake! Snake!
Metal Gear Solid was a game that had me glued to my TV for days. The awesomeness of Solid Snake. The little jokes, the odd moments like hiding in a locker and kissing a poster of some random Japanese model and getting a call from Otacon asking you what the fuck you're doing. Or even catching Meryl with her pants down. These were all amazing moments. The fight with Psycho Mantis was a head fuck. The way he told you what games you'd been playing and moved your controller with his mind, all of that stuff just blew me away. Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty is probably my favorite game of them all. From the opening level where you play as Snake on the tanker, I instantly noticed the upgrade in graphics and gameplay and I loved it. And towards the end, everything once again wound up getting odd, like running around as Raiden naked while getting calls from the Colonel saying stuff to you like, well actually I'm not really in a very good place financially right now. I loved that game. Now Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, had me running around as the original Snake, eating snakes, killing guards from tall grass while wearing Canadian flag face paint. It was just what I wanted. Over the top badassery. Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots was once again an amazing game. It finally wrapped up the story and did it in the perfect way I would have expected. And with the addition of the geckos, two-legged giant machines that moo at you, it kept that randomness that Metal Gear Solid had me loving from the beginning. And now we move on to my favorite game franchise of them all. Final fucking Fantasy. Now I started my journey with Final Fantasy with the 8th edition in the franchise. From the visuals, which at the time blew my fucking mind because I hadn't seen cutscenes like that in a PlayStation 1 game, to the story which had me immersed in it from the very beginning. Everything about this game is why I fell in love with RPGs and the Final Fantasy series itself. Final Fantasy VII was next. The reason I loved Final Fantasy VII can be summed up with one name. Sephiroth. The moment I saw that dude, I realized that he was going to be the epitome of badass, unstoppable game villains for the rest of time. And I was right. Even to this day, whenever someone says to me, like, who's the most badass villain in this or in anything, Sephiroth is always either at the top or very close. Now the rest of the games from 5 to 12 I loved as well. Maybe not as much as 7 or 8, but I loved them nonetheless. But then 13 came along. Seriously. Fuck Final Fantasy 13. Anyway, that's all I'm gonna say about video games. I think I've covered the subject well enough for now. So now, I have some explaining to do. The vlogs are late, and I apologize for that. It mostly came down to a mix of laziness and circumstance. Now all of the vlogs I should have previously done before now that should be out are all going to be released today. This will be released first, then my drunken vlog, and then my wrestling vlog. So thanks for watching this week's episode of LODVLOG with me, Dave.
See you next time, fuckers.